Um, Today we're going to talk about, is it time to create intentional hiring? And our speakers are Jim Seifert, Program Director of the Envestnet Institute on Campus, Steve Clark, President of DAK Associates, and Jordan Rosen, Program Administrator for DAK Associates. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions, we will have some time to answer them at the end of the presentation. We encourage you to use the questions feature that is incorporated into the GoToWebinar software. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time this afternoon to talk about this important topic. This session should run anywhere between 45 and 50 minutes tops, and that'll include question and answer. So we're going to talk about three main topics, and I'm going to really stress the first two. The first one is, through our experience through Envestnet Institute on Campus, what are we seeing in the university space? What are the students telling us? In our world, if you will, what are the hiring managers telling us about hiring, especially on the entry-level space, if you will, human resources executives, and financial advisors. So advisors are coming to us and saying, I don't know where to turn. I don't know how to find an intern. I don't know how to find an entry-level person that may eventually even take over pieces of my book of business. So we'll touch on that today as well. We're going to drill down a little bit on Envestnet Institute on Campus. There are some folks on the phone who are learning about this for the first time. So I'm going to drill down into our mission, the specific education that we actually provide, and then I'll get into some of our measurements of success. And then from there, I'm going to turn it over to Steve and Jordan, and we're going to talk about the hiring process. How do we take students, create a pool of talent, a diverse pool of talent, and how do you access that pool? So here's what we're seeing from our lens, if you will. And most of you on the phone kind of already know this, is that talent management now, and has been a top priority at the CEO level. What we have noticed is a greater emphasis on the execution of diversity and talent management. So it's kind of interesting to see in that there's actual documentation, there's actual plans with specific numbers around diversity. So it's kind of great to see. What is shifting, and these are some of the words of some of the executives we've spoken to, and I'll just give a couple of quotes. One has been, we're no longer as interested in referrals and friends and family, and friends and family is really around internships. It's just a, quote unquote, a suboptimal way to grow a culture. That was interesting. Second point is the definition of diversity is broadening. So obviously we need more women in our business. We need more minorities in our business. We've been writing about this for years now, and hopefully that's beginning to change, and we're hopefully going to be behind some of those efforts. But what's fun to see is that we're getting questions along the lines of, we'd like to see some liberal arts students in our firm. That's an example of what diversity means to some institutions. Another example is, we're located in Boston and we would like to recruit some students from universities in the Midwest. So it's interesting to see, how this is all evolving, and hopefully we're able to help along the way. So addressing the issues, for those of you who have not heard about Envestnet Institute on Campus, what it's all about, I'll spend a couple of minutes on this topic, and you'll hear at the end that, if you want to really have a drill down on this on the on-campus and have a separate discussion, we can do that. But the purpose of this is to really just sort of give you an idea of what we're doing to solve the issue. And it is through Envestnet Institute on Campus, which was founded in the spring of 2015. And you can read the first bullet point. That's the mission. That's kind of obvious. But we're executing through the last 3 bullet points. So we wanted to build a program that really taught practical knowledge about what we all do day to day with regards to wealth and asset management. So what that simply means is that in the world of academia, they don't really train, and nor are they able to, because we're kind of moving pretty fast, are things like the products, or topics like products. How do they work? How do they evolve? How are they priced? How are they sold? How are they relevant? Where are they going? Where are the trends in technologies? Just a couple of examples. So we do a lot of training, and we'll talk a little bit more about this on the next slide. We do get into the kind of the weeds a little bit on, model management, all the acronyms that we've developed, and making these, hopefully making these students available to walk into the room day one and not be looking around wondering what people are talking about, which is part of the training that we do. This next bullet point, demonstrating career possibilities. We do this quite a bit. We do it through our training, our e-learning training. We do it through webcasts. As a matter of fact, we just now got off the phone with Elon University, and the webcast was dedicated to just careers. Once again, we're moving very fast. So putting ourselves in your shoes, looking for students who are analytically inclined, looking for students who may want to just be part of your digital marketing efforts. Well, these are career paths that students need to know about while they're at school, so that they can look at internships and further their classwork with what's relevant and what's happening today. Some of the highlights of the program itself: Envestnet Institute on Campus is industry sponsored. So alongside Envestnet, another one of our major sponsors is Fiserv. We are in contract negotiations. I wouldn't say negotiations. We're tidying up the contract for another very senior partner to join us here in the next couple of weeks. We'll let you know about that at a later date. But the point here is that behind Envestnet, we have a number of firms who are very interested in being part of this movement, if you will. And this phone call is not designed to talk about sponsorships, but if those who are interested, we can have a separate discussion on those. We did build this second bullet point, no cost to the university, no cost to the student. That is not the model. That is not going to be the model. Our mission here is to develop the talent pool and deliver the talent pool to executives, to employers, to HR, and to advisors that I mentioned earlier for hiring purposes. It is taught online. So what that means is that it's all self-paced. There are actually 7 mandatory classes that the student takes. These 7 classes make up roughly 7 hours worth of training. 7 classes, 7 hours, 7 tests. And there's an additional 3 to 4 hours of what we call optional training. So what that means is that after a student is done the course, or even while they're taking the course, they can listen to podcasts, they can read white papers on a variety of subjects. We do have a robust website, articles of interest. They get a subscription to Fundfire. So we're hoping to get them, into the continuous loop of learning over and above the 7 classes that are mandatory. There is a Women in Wealth initiative that is sponsored, by the way, by Fiserv. So underneath Envestnet Institute on Campus, Fiserv runs the Women in Wealth Initiative. Very, very important to us. Us meaning the industry, us. Right now, our industry has 27% makeup of women. That needs to improve. Our goal here is to take our 34%, and that's the number, that's the percent of women that have taken our course, and get that up to 40%, which is going to be a little hard to do, but that's one of the goals. Fiserv, underneath Women in Wealth, has an extensive program that includes mentoring, white papers, webinars, and initiatives to keep women interested, involved, and then hopefully help them land a job somewhere in the future. The DAK Resume Hub, that's where you find the talent. So everything that we just mentioned, when the students are going through the classes, finish the course, they're part of the Women in Wealth, they actually opt into this DAK Resume Hub, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and that's how you access the talent from Envestnet Institute on campus. Here's a little bit about the growth. We're pretty excited about the next couple of graphics here. So started in, once again, spring 2015, 4 universities as a pilot, and in the fall of 2017, 1,143, you can see the number. That's how many students completed the program. We have another 350 plus going through the program as we speak for this semester, which wraps up literally a couple of weeks from now, right around mid-April. So once again, we keep growing. What we really like about these numbers, if you will, is that right now, 79% of the students that take this particular program, 79% of them complete it. So each university, we run a spring and a fall semester, as you can see by the graph here. Each university gets, on average, 25, call them slots, 25 scholarships per semester. So that's 50 per year per university. And we just see this, hopefully this number continuing to grow through the universities that I'll talk about in a second. We're big fans of measurement. We track, just about everything. This number here we think is good. As I mentioned, of the total, 34% are women. We need to increase that. I'll talk about that in a minute. But once again, we are keeping track of the women participation as well as the minority participation. I'm not particularly thrilled with this number. We need to do better, but we're doing our best, and you can see where the numbers are at least headed. Here is the list of participating universities, and right now you can see we're heavily weighted on the East Coast. Having said that, we have an effort underway, and we're doing a very good job, especially heading into the fall, heading toward the Midwest, the Southeast. I'm sorry, I wish I could tell you these schools, but we're in conversations with them. The Southeast is going to look pretty darn good by the fall, same with the Midwest, and then all the way out to the West Coast. When you look at the university list here, we're very proud of this. It's a very diverse list, if you will. You have your Villanovas, and you also have your Lake Forests, and everybody in between. Speaking of diversity, we are intentionally, underscore intentionally, looking for schools with a high minority base of students. So Delaware State, for example, just joined this semester. They're putting 30 students through the program, which will improve our numbers. As far as improving the Women in Wealth numbers, we are actively seeking, women-only universities. And I'll spare you some of those names, if you will, but we're looking at adding those for the fall. So again, very well represented in the Northeast, heading further toward the Midwest and all the way out to the West Coast. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and we'll talk about the talent pool.
Thanks, Jim, and hello to everyone on the call today. My name is Steve Clark. I'm with DAK Associates, the national executive search firm based here in Philadelphia. DAK is now, just to give you a little a quick overview, DAK is now in its 38th year and exclusively serves the financial services community nationally. We work across a pretty broad swath of the business, which we believe will actually be beneficial in opening up opportunities to EIOC students, be it across asset management, certainly within wealth management, insurance and retirement, and then the financial technology or operation side of the business. And by virtue of having been in business for so long, we've amassed quite a significant database, and we've built coding that is unique and specific to financial services. So not to get too deep in the weeds here, but we're pretty thoughtful across the environments that folks come out of, right? Whether it's broker-dealers or asset managers or wealth, the various functions, whether it's C-suite, distribution, portfolio managers, analysts, product exposures, right? Funds, ETFs, alternatives, asset classes, fixed income, equities, real estate, and the list goes on. And then, of course, things like geography, FINRA licensing, educational credentials, professional credentials, right? CFA, CAIA, CIMA. Are there language proficiencies? So we try to be very thoughtful across the board. And when the EIOC program began to take off and the number of participating students really started to grow exponentially, it was clear that a dedicated database needed to be created to warehouse these students, for the lack of a better term, to code them, and to track them. And I'm proud to say that we've been a partner to EIOC for 3 years now, and we've availed our database to the EIOC program and created custom coding for the students. And it's somewhat limited, right? Because these are kids that are not, have not been in the professional workforce, so it's sort of simplified. Are they summer intern candidates? Are they newly minted graduates who will make for entry-level hires? But as they develop further in their career, we'll be able to track them and really start to apply additional coding to them as they become professionals in the workplace. But it's commonplace now to have students who are in college and they may have already taken their FINRA Series 7 exam as an example, or they're taking CFP curriculum. So those are things that we can code. And then, of course, you have the geographical element here, which is really key, because as Jim pointed out, while the vast preponderance of EIOC participating universities are East Coast based, that doesn't mean the students are. Right, so there could be students who live in Chicago that go to Villanova, or students that go to Fordham who are from Southern California, and so we can code where they live, and more importantly, where they're willing to relocate to for that entry-level hire, or where they're willing to travel to, or take on a summer internship role. So that's really key in all this. But once students officially complete the program, they fill out a career profile that's really designed to get them to start to think about the kind of roles that they may have an interest in pursuing. Not that we expect them to have everything figured out, but you'd be amazed, even in the early stages, students start to get a sense, do I want to be client-facing? Do I want to be in sales? How about technology? How about compliance? How about portfolio management? So we try to draw a bead and get them to start thinking along those lines. And in addition to the career profile, the students prepare their resumes. And once that's completed, the profile and the resumes are sent to DAC. And then we, in turn, will code them as that summer intern candidate or as that entry-level hire candidate. And, of course, code them by geography and some of the other applicable inputs that I mentioned. And then, of course, as opportunities arise, we will reach out to the student population, make them aware of the opportunity, gauge their interest, and start to really engage them and qualify them for that internship or for that entry-level role. And I guess the key thing that I would like to impart to those of you on the call is that if you were to engage EIOC and DAKdirect, I want you to know that this is not a data dump. This is not a resume dump. We don't bombard you with resumes. You do no heavy lifting whatsoever. We do all the work, and we try to narrow down the field and present a smaller and more thoughtful student lineup for you to engage with. And so on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan Rosen, who's our program administrator here on the DAC side, and Jordan will take you all through a real-life case study, which I think will point out, our process. Jordan, take it away.
Thanks, Steve. So as Steve had mentioned, my name is Jordan. I'm the program administrator for the EIOC program, and I have the pleasure of placing these students in internship or entry-level roles. So as you will soon see on the screen, we have broken down a case study for you so that you can better understand the search process. And the search process is typically broken down into 5 segments, which will be the need, the search, the screening, the introduction, and the hiring. So to begin with the need, this is a real life situation, as Steve had mentioned. This was back in summer of 2017. So we had a firm come to us, a wealth RIA, and they were based in Washington, D.C. They were looking for an intern who was based locally. So we either needed that student to live in the DC Beltway or we needed them to have ties to the area, whether that be family or friends. So right from there, then the search began. We had that client create an account on our DAKdirect website. And then from there, as I mentioned, search began. We began scanning through hundreds of student profiles and resumes that we had in our database. And we soon were finding, that we have a great amount of students in the database, maybe not as many in the DC Beltway as we thought we had. So Steve and I, we kind of started re-racking, thinking, what else can we do here? So we decided to reach out to students who, although their resume does not say they're located in the DC Beltway, they may have family or friends in the area. So any student who fit the criteria that the client was looking for, we began reaching out to, seeing if they did have ties to the DC Beltway area. Luckily, more than a handful came back saying that they did and that they were able to relocate for the summer of 2017. So from there, the screening comes along. DAKdirect, we contacted 83 students. We had 20 of those students respond to the opportunity. And then the 20 were qualified by DAKdirect, and then 10 of them actually came back to us showing serious interest. So just so you understand the amount of work that goes into this, we will not simply, like Steve said, just dump resumes onto you. We are going to send you over highly qualified students that have the drive, that are motivated, and that show they are truly interested in this. So of those 10, we had 4 that we were able to actually present to the client, and they were 4 quality students. So from there, we have the introduction. 3 weeks transpired. Steve and I had arranged multiple phone interviews, Skype calls between the client and the student. So they were able to meet. And from there, the client had identified 2 finalists from the group, and that's when the Skype calls transpired. So after the Skype calls, that leads us to the hiring. The client made a final decision, and we were able to place that student. So the client actually had such a great experience with us that she utilized the EIOC program again for this coming summer of 2018, and we once again were able to satisfy her needs, and we placed another wonderful candidate. So with that, I hope that gave you a better idea of the process, and I'm going to turn it back to Steve.
Thank you, Jordan. And one thing I would also point out, in this case, we were dealing with a wealth RIA, and it was a smaller one at that. So they were several $100 million in AUM. They had roughly 5 employees. And if you think about it, students are probably thinking about interning at a big or a bigger organization, right, that's large or has brand and size and et cetera, et cetera. So, in that screening, Jordan really had to make sure that these were individuals who were coming in eyes wide open, that this is a smaller firm, it's a smaller environment. You're not going to have, 20 millennials on the same floor that you can go out to lunch with, right? It may be you and 4 more senior professionals. So those are the kind of things that we, that's sort of baked into our qualifying process. And then certainly there's case studies with large asset managers and larger branded financial services organizations, but I think this is a good indicator of what goes into our process. And then just to sort of take you through the process, once you have a need, you talk to a human being, right? You're going to talk to me, you're going to talk to Jordan. We're going to really try to drill down on what's the need, whether it's an internship or it's an entry-level role. We're going to try to understand your company, your culture, the team dynamics within that particular group that's making the hire or where the summer internship will reside. And then, of course, you're going to naturally have a wish list, right? If this is an intern sitting with one of your portfolio management teams, if you're an asset manager, you may want a student who is pursuing a degree in finance or economics or has that bent. If it's as an example, we've had internships for quality assurance, where they want someone who's more technologically advanced, perhaps code, comes with an engineering or math degree. So we're going to be able to apply those kind of overlays with respect to the kind of, what the internship entails or the entry-level hire entails. We're doing a search now for an asset manager that wants to use EIOC to make a permanent hire, but in their call center. And so naturally, in that instance, we're looking for, students who embrace what will ultimately become more of a forward-facing, client-facing, sales-oriented role, which, not all students are going to opt for. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into the process. And then, of course, Jordan pointed out how the inner workings go from there. Once we know what you're looking for, that's when the student outreach begins and the games begin. So from a pricing standpoint, because I'm sure you may have some questions on that, it's pretty simple. So for a summer internship, we simply charge a $500 administrative fee. That's it. So there's no additional costs above and beyond that to use the program. And then for entry-level hire, it's $1,000. So it's a $500 administrative fee up front. And once you actually make the hire, there's a $500 success fee that's paid on the on the back end. So these are, we realize these aren't professionals yet, and we're certainly not going to charge search fees on a newly minted graduate, but there is a lot that goes into the process, and so entry level is just slightly more in cost. So with that, I'll throw it back to Jim, and then perhaps we'll get into Q&A.
Thanks, Steve. Let me wrap this up with just a couple of closing comments, and then we'll get to the questions. So what's been really great to see is kind of the movement, if you will, of this program, the acceleration, the growth. And just to point out a few things, on the university side, you'll see this young lady, Naveen Ritchie, up in the upper corner here. Schools are really beginning to embrace the program, and some of the professors are actually making the self-paced learning part of their course. In Naveen's case, and she's the economics professor for the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, she actually made the course itself a one-credit course within the studies under finances. So totally embracing what EIOC has to offer. Another example here is Peter Nigro from Bryant University. As we speak, Envestnet we're up at Bryant University, and we are participating in a 6-week number of seminars strictly on women and wealth. So we're speaking there tonight, and then I'll be up there in a couple of weeks with Cheryl Nash, and we'll be in front of, right now it looks like a little over 100 young women interested in our business. Just a few more examples. Here's Hezekiah. He is actually a Bryant University grad. We did a search through DAKdirect roughly 9 months ago, whereby an advisor was looking to make a permanent hire to bring somebody on, first and foremost, to work with their proposal systems, their financial planning tools, eventually work hopefully with clients, and maybe even be part of the business. And he's been down there for a little under a year now, and it's just another example of the success of the program. Fiordi, 2 more examples here real quick. I could talk all day about these students. So Fiordi, from Albania, his sophomore year, he was the president of Colgate's Investment Club. Goes through the EIOC program. We get him his first internship in New York City with a money management firm all around portfolio design. This summer, he'll be working with BlackRock. He got that internship on his own, and right now he's studying in Geneva, Switzerland. And then last but not least here, just individual, Taylor. She studied accounting, still studying accounting. Loves math, loves analytics. She was an intern here at Wheelhouse in our analytics side. She went through the mentoring program through Cheryl, and she's now very interested in possibly going on to get her CFP and someday becoming a female advisor. So great stories. They're happening fast and furious. I'm going to close with 2 things. We're going to send you a copy of our annual report. We just completed it. As I mentioned earlier, we're big fans of measurement, how we're doing, how our placements are doing, how we're doing with DAK. Please check it out and let us know what you think. And then if you have any, questions at all, contact Jordan, contact Dan. They'll put you in the right spot, whether it's with myself or Steve, or maybe they can handle the question. But we're here for you and happy to assist if you have any questions going forward. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions. We've got about 10 minutes left. If we want to keep this call right on time, we can go over if you'd like. But we'll open it up for Q&A at this point. So Dan is working the system on our side. Let me throw out 2 questions that I get quite often from HR and talent management, and one of them is, can we review the content? Meaning, can you set us up so we can look at each of the classes, take the tests, what have you? And the answer is yes, we can do that, and it's probably not a bad idea if you're serious about doing multiple hires through DAK and Associates. Second question that we get quite a bit is this. So the question is, well, I'm looking at your map, looks great, but we have schools that we have relationships with that are not on your list. Can we attempt to get them within the scope of EIOC and allow their students to actually take the course? The answer is a resounding yes. This particular platform, if you will, is very scalable. I won't get into the weeds about it, but it's quite scalable. As I mentioned, we run the fall program, we run a spring program. Eventually, we may run a summer program as we move forward. But a kind of a live example is there's a firm in Michigan who is going to be one of our larger sponsors here in the next couple of weeks. They have a very strong relationship with Michigan and Michigan State. And over the years, they've brought in hundreds of interns, and a percentage of them became permanent hires. They're going to use the platform to better streamline the mission of what they're doing. And then they're going to use DAK because a number of the individuals that they've hired want to move out and work for their clients. That's pretty exciting. So they'll use DAK to do searches for individuals who've been in the business for a little bit, but now want to branch out and possibly work for a client. That's a pretty interesting model right there. So those are two questions that I get quite a bit.
Yeah, and on that note, Jim and Steve, you can imagine we get our share of questions. The one that comes up quite a bit is everything done using the DAKdirect website? And the short answer is no. The only thing that you would do through the DAKdirect website is set up an account, which would enable you to pay the administrative fee, and it takes, you can use your corporate card for that or what have you. But from that point forward, you do no heavy lifting whatsoever. That's where you turn it over to us, you talk to human beings, and we take everything on from there. The other one that comes up that's very important, and it's on the tops of just about every corporation's mind, is, can I get a diverse lineup? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. Now there are situations depending on the criteria or the profile or what have you, where that could prove to be difficult. But I think we've been achieving a pretty good success rate at delivering diverse lineups, both gender diversity and persons of color. And I'm proud to report that I believe 3 out of our last 4, if we both look at both internships and full-time hire, 3 of those 4 were diversity hires, and I believe persons of color at that. And then the other question that we get quite a bit, of course, is how long does a search typically take? And a lot of that is really driven by the client and how involved the process is on their end, or where we are in the timing with that client. But some of these hires, again, whether it's internship or entry level, have happened as quick as 3 weeks. And some have taken 2 months, but a lot of that has just been sort of the nature of the process within the client user's organization, just their timing and sort of, internal workings. But once you engage with EIOC, we turn the machine on and we attack it pretty quickly. And you're typically engaging with student prospects, within a week.
Thank you, Steve. So we see no questions on the screen, which is great. Once again, please share this. We'll send a link out in the recording to you very shortly. Feel free to share this. We hope it was helpful. And then once again, contact us if you have any questions that we can answer for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.